What industry secret do you know that most people don't? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. I'm an unarmed security guard. Every now and then, I'll get a comment from someone about how they're glad I'm around in case there's an active shooter or something. Yay, if that happens. We're not doing anything aside from getting ourselves to safety and calling the cops. We're literally told in training that if we try to intervene directly with an active shooter, we'll be fired. Story 2. Live audio engineer. Sometimes they're faking it. I've had to mic drum sets where the cables went nowhere. I've had to ask a keyboard player if they were having trouble because they were playing, but nothing was coming out of their channel. Don't even get me started on pitch correction, teleprompters, guide tracks, ghost musicians, backing tracks, etc. Story 3. Worked in online community management and social media for years. Admins can read all of your PMS. Private only means private from the masses, not from administration. We had to be able to read them to check reports of abuse, grooming, illegal activity, etc. I can't tell you how much cringeworthy shit I had to read through, especially from guys trying to hook up. Story 4. If your baby goes to a nursery daycare, chances are those weren't their first steps, words, etc. that you witnessed. Industry standard is to not tell parents when these things happen, as it makes them feel bad. I've seen kids up and walking about the room for weeks, even months before their parent proudly announced at drop-off that they took their first steps last night. Story 5. I worked in politics. There are a lot of people who write to a politician like they're a celebrity. They receive love letters and all kinds of weird stuff. There's also quite a sizable part of their mail that is comprised of people asking for a photo with an autograph. Way more than you think. Some because they're admirers, others because they collect them, and then some other cases you don't really want to know about. I've worked for a female politician. Trust me, you don't want to know. The dirty little secret within the secret is that the politicians I knew didn't sign anything. They had a machine that did all the signing for them. So technically, the autographs were not even real. Story 6. Some appetizers are the most labor-intense items on the menu to make. For example, dumplings takes one worker about an hour to make 15 orders. If you want to know where I'm getting at, if a restaurant offers a plethora of appetizers options, then there's a high chance a lot of them are store-bought and resold because there's no feasible way to prepare several orders for each item on the menu. Story 7. I work in education. We are way behind the ball with student issues and are just flying by the seat of our pants, so to speak. We are in crisis, and most parents simply want to drop their kids off and hope they have a normal experience. None of this is normal. You need to start having conversations with your kids about mental health and social media. If not, woof. Our society is not in good shape. Story 8. The market for translation isn't being killed by AI, because it's already dead and AI is putting it out of its misery. Essentially, translation agencies have been acting as a cartel, controlling the relationship between clients and translators and abusing their position as middlemen to drive translator pay down, mainly by using translators in developing countries whom they can pay less. Story 9. I'm a casino manager. It is definitely possible, more likely than you think, to win money in the short term. For example, if you walk in, bet on red, black on roulette, it's reasonably close to 50/50ths, not quite because of zero. You might do this once, double your money and leave. Congratulations, you will always lose in the long term, always. Anyone that thinks they have some kind of system is a sucker. A game would not make it into the casino floor if the maths have not been rigorously checked and long-term simulations run to confirm. Story 10. Car industry. Never buy a car that is completely new on the market. They always come with a ton of bugs that need fixing, and it takes about 2 years of serial production to get rid of most of them. If you must buy a new car, be sure the model has been in the market for at least 2 years. The reason for why we don't fix the problems before start of selling. Cost. Also, don't buy models that were in development during years of crisis. Example. During the 2008 financial crisis, we let go a huge number of people to fix the numbers in the books. didn't actually save the company money because they all got a big payout on their way out, so we were understaffed and under immense pressure to reduce cost. The models that came on the market after that time were shit. Like, serious shit quality we have never seen before. Story 11. Trained artist here. Most oil paints are made with very toxic substances, as are most paint thinners and mediums. Every single one of my teachers was either very sick, cancer, Menier's disease, or a bit crazy, eating chalk, licking palettes. All incredible artists I was privileged to learn from. One lesson I learned very well: I wear gloves and sometimes a mask when I paint. Edit. I mentioned Menier's because one of my favorite teachers had it. I worked closely with him, and his suffering holds a large place in my memories of school. While I think the exposure to toxins didn't do him any favors, I should not have implied a correlation. I apologize. To those asking, no paint was licked off palettes. They had just been cleaned with denatured alcohol, and he always led with, "Now you could eat off them," before waggling his tongue on the glass. Loved the shock factor. That guy did. Story 12. I don't know if this is really a secret, but something I encountered that I thought was interesting because I'd never seen it or considered it before. I work in closed captioning, and part of that workflow sometimes means doing a first pass on a project to an early version of the video. I think people would be surprised at how rough those early videos can be. Some dialogue, particularly when the character's mouth is not in the shot, is often not spoken by the characters saying it because it's temporary ADR that will get filled in by the actor later on. I've seen files where they don't even have temporary voiceover. It's literally just text on the screen saying, ADR line. This is a line of dialogue that this character is going to speak in this scene. You also occasionally get to see characters acting in front of green screens, or you'll see all the safety gear wires before it gets edited out. One of my favorite things, though, is rough special effects. Sometimes it looks like someone using editing software for the first time, creating a crappy fire overlay for what will eventually be an actual effect, or still images just being dragged around a screen. My all-time favorite was when a scene featured an animal attack, and the animal in the early video was a box with a text label on it just vaguely wriggling around while the actor reacted to it. I don't think it's that crazy or anything, but like the viewer almost never gets to see it because it's all edited out and fixed by the time the show goes to air. It's just really funny and catches you off guard sometimes. Story 13. The reason why the kid fell off the Orlando free fall ride. Any ride with an over-the-shoulder restraint system works by using a proximity sensor to let the computer system know where the restraint is locked. The ride can't move unless all the sensors sense the correct metal at the correct position. On some rides, you can move the sensor a few millimeters for proper alignment. Not enough to make a difference. On the free fall ride, someone in management might have wanted to modify a few seats for larger guests. Someone might have told a maintenance worker to move the sensor, which allowed the ride to start with the restraint in a position not in the original design. With this modification, the restraint would be at more of a 45 or so degree angle instead of directly downward. This may or may not have been done with an engineer's approval. This may or may not have been done with the ride vendor's permission. Any procedure like this is strictly prohibited from any standpoint in the amusement rides industry. I can't explain why they thought it was okay. In most situations, you wouldn't be able to move the sensor much without detaching the bracket and moving the whole thing to a different location. Again, this wouldn't even be discussed anywhere I have ever worked, but they might have at Icon Park. The details of this mechanical procedure never made the headlines in Florida because all the lawsuits were settled. In the end, someone decided to change the position of that sensor. We will probably never know who. There is probably a maintenance worker who was ordered to do so. I've worked on enough restraints to know that it was not an accident. Personally, I would have refused to do it, and so would almost everyone that works on these things. Story 14. Google sucks so much now because around a decade ago, they abandoned the measurement known as page utility, which just measured the usefulness of the site itself. Instead, they migrated to Expertise Authority Trust, which had good intentions of stopping the proliferation of bad info. but instead it basically resulted in prioritizing large corporations and capital over any sites created by average people. The contract workers known as raters they employed to help determine the best search results became an echo chamber, as there were strict demands on exactly what the right answers were in most cases, and straying from the expectations of Big G resulted in poor reviews and possible firing. Of course, we were not allowed to say the G word. We could only say the client. It's about to get worse, too. They just laid off a huge swathe of them. Story 15. I'm an academic researcher, and I can speak for a huge number in my field when I say, if you want access to our studies and they're behind a paywall, you can email us and we will send you the study. We are genuinely delighted to share, and if you want further context for the results or what have you, I'll always try my best to oblige. The only limiters on that last bit is that 1. The original data for the study might have reached the end of our right to keep it, in which case it will have been destroyed. 2. I might have forgotten details, or I might have written that paper during a particularly hectic time, and my file system might be total shit. Also, a lot of us are on ResearchGate and various social media things, so you can contact us through there. If you can't contact us directly or we're being slow, one of the other authors on the paper might be contactable. Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like more of this, please hit a like button and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.